Welcome back. All right, so we're gonna get started with making the green base to our wreath, and then we'll do all the fun embellishments after that. So I went ahead and just chose a wreath shape, and I just kind of used a little bit of bind wire to hold it in place. I actually might add one more right here, so you just want to make it as circular as possible. All right, so because this wreath is so, not complicated, but has a lot of elements to it, I kind of lean towards a simpler greenery base. I've already unbound my greens, and I've gone ahead and just cut them up into a little bit more usable pieces. So you don't want anything much longer than a foot for sure. That's a pretty long one, but I thought it was cute, so I left it long. But yeah, but you could even use real short ones in case. I even had some that were one piece like this, and I chopped it here, so I have two shorter ones now. So I have those, and then I've also chopped down my yellow tip cedar. This one has a very hardy branch center stem, so I just cut off all the offshoots. It might depend on the bunch that you've received, but you can get a lot of really short, 8-inch, 10-inch long pieces. So we basically are going to take a little bit of both elements and create some bunches. So I would recommend, I think we're going to try to shoot for maybe about, I'd say 10 to 15 of these, based on how large you make them. So I like the wispy bits to really stick out in the back, even longer, because it's a little less bulky, so it can kind of reach out further. And you're going to take your short piece of bind wire from your bowl, wrap it around as many times as you can and as tight as you can. And this will be our first mini bunch. And I like to cut all mine super short because I find that it makes it much easier to handle later. If this is a problem because you only have scissors at home or whatever, I would just recommend cutting each piece much shorter when you first start. So when you put together your little bunches, you don't have super excess stems to remove. So let's make a bunch of these. One, two, three, 11, 12. Perfect. And now we are going to attach them to our ring form. So I would just say take a nice big bunch to get started. Let's see, like this one here. So what I like to do is, instead of putting it just flat like that on your wreath and binding it in, I like to put the cut side in the inner part of your circle, so it's kind of nestled diagonally downward and flaying up into the side. If that makes any sense? And that way it's kind of going forward towards you versus flat like that. So it's like that versus like that. So you gain a few inches. It looks a little fuller this way, I think, and a little more movement to it. So you're just going to want to bind wire it down. Sometimes I just do it flat on top, but sometimes I also like to nestle a little bit into the bunch, just a tad. You can do that when your bunches are already bound, which is kind of a perk of that. And then you are literally just going to twisty tie them on. So just like that. And it's a little loose, so you can always add one more, like one that is at the very bottom of your branch clipping, and then another that's a little higher but nestled into your branches a bit more. But usually as you keep adding things, it just gets more stable. Sometimes I just do that when I get started. So as you can see, I'm now going to add my next bunch, where this part covers the mechanics of the prior bunch. And you're going to keep basically adding in that same direction until you get to the very end. In the very end, you're going to lift up the first bunch and cinch it underneath. So it looks like it's seamless. It all has like one grain, one direction of your branches. So let's attach this. And I suggest too, like, finding pieces that feel like the movement of it is going in the right direction. Like, I like how this branch is now swaying to my left versus like this where it's just like flat. I like adding that extra curve. So sometimes just holding it, you know, twisting it around, seeing how it best adds to the piece is great. I feel like it's a little bit light on this side of my wreath, so I think I'm going to put a heavier concentration of berries. Oh, and I actually forgot to say, before the berries, I actually do one ingredient, which is the giant pine cone. Mostly because you want to find that emptiest place in your piece so it can just very easily become part of the piece and not feel weird. I also like to kind of put it on the inside a bit. So I think I might put mine right here because it kind of bounces. It's a little fluffier right here, and this sort of balances it, I think, in weight. So what I'll do is I'll take one of my longer pieces of bind wire, and then I will just kind of thread it through its little petal-like things, more towards the bottom of it as well. It doesn't really matter. You could do it any place, but sometimes the bottom gives you a little more malleability, whether or not you want to face directly at you or sideways. All right, so it's a little bit light here, so I think I'm going to keep going with the berries on this side. A really great way to get a little bit more movement and space is with ilex berry. It really fills up like airy space without a lot of bulk. So since this side feels a little light to me, I think I'm going to add that ilex over here. Looks good. All right, and then from this point, I would recommend going with kind of your most heavy ingredients, which would be the fruit next. And to help out with the fruit and just helping them land well and not get pierced unnecessarily, we have this nice, beautiful moss. So I like to kind of just sort of nestle in where I think I might put some fruit. I'm going to start with my biggest piece for this particular kit or this particular set for this week. Yours could be different. But this one is just like a red pear. So this is the one thing in my kit this week that I could really benefit using this little peg. It's like stake peg. And the reason for that is that this is a very heavy piece of fruit. You wouldn't really want to wire it only because it would potentially rip and fall out of its wire. So the peg really helps give it a little extra shape. So I'm kind of just deciding where I want it. I thought I wanted it there, but I'm trying to decide, is that true? Do I really want it there? let's see. I kind of liked it up here, but I tend to usually put it near the bottom. But this is where you might start seeing, like, okay, where is the bottom? Where is the top of my piece? Sometimes I like to just make it and see how it works out. I'm gonna add a little bit of our moss over here. So I am going to kind of find the spot I like my pear. I'm gonna put it up here, and I'm gonna slightly angle it inward too. So it's important to know which way you're doing it because it will affect how you pierce it. So, and I also kind of think doing pears and stuff like this, like upside down, kind of helps with the look of it too. So anyways, okay, so I'm gonna just go for it. I know it seems crazy, but you just stick it in as much as you can without hitting through or out piercing back through. Okay, so that feels pretty good. That is nice and solid. So now you have this extra stick here, which I'm just gonna trim it just a teensy bit. And now you can kind of weave it into your grid system that you've sort of created with your ring base. See, that got in there really well actually. And so now it's really stuck in there. You can kind of weave it around and feel it out, but I feel like that actually that was a really good solid connection there. So that's awesome. But I would only recommend this for the bigger ones. It does make your fruit go faster because there's a larger piercing through it. So any sort of opening in the flesh of the fruit obviously is going to increase the passing of the fruit. And I'm going to show you how to wire a pear, like a little baby, or not a baby pear, but like a medium boss pear. So you kind of can see the wire here, but here's one without a wire, so I'm just going to do it with you real quick. I'm just going to show you like basically 2 examples. So the first, this one's a little heavier, it's like a medium weight fruit. So I want to put it in my wreath. Ooh, I actually kind of like it right there, that's pretty. So you want to find the spot that you like it. Put a little moss down to cushion it so it doesn't get spiked by the pine cone here, for example. And then you're going to want to figure out where to pierce it so that you can get the wire through in a nice spot but not overly show it. And then when I push it through, you want to just really use pressure. It's close, not up here, because if you do it up here, it'll bend this and then it won't go in straight. The key is to go in as straight as an arrow as you can. Push it all the way, because if it's not straight, it will create a larger hole piercing where you are puncturing the fruit. And then you just bend it down. Like so. And for these, I recommend, for this weight, I would recommend 2. So this one, I'm just going to go straight up from the bottom. There we go. Bend it in. And you don't want to pull too hard. So now you kind of have a nice wired fruit. All right. So let me show you how to then pierce a small item. So like here's our little baby pear. So this time it's really the same idea as what you're doing before, but instead of 2 crossing, I think it totally works with just 1. And I don't know if you can see, if it'll focus a little hard, but I actually also wrapped it a little bit around the stem here for a little extra support. That made it a lot stronger. So I would recommend kind of placing your fruit, seeing how you like it, go ahead and wiring them, and then try attaching them. You can kind of do the oranges next, maybe your bits of lavender. I often like to undo this and make it like 2 different mini bunches. You could even do it less than that, actually. So like this. I like how it kind of looks just in there. So I actually like that right there pretty good. So I'm just gonna get a very small piece of bind wire, wrap it a couple times, and then just see if it's so lightweight, so you can almost just really easily attach it to anything that's nearby. Okay, and now I'm going to put my orange slices. I also just wired these with bind wire because they're so lightweight as well, and save my hardier wire for my fruit. And if you need to, you can just pierce through these. It'll pierce with the bind wire. It's pretty delicate, so it's not hard to do at all. I think this is my favorite ingredient to add because I think it just makes everything feel so good. If you can see, like a little delicate touch. And then last but not least, we need to add our flowers. So take your tubes, go to the sink and fill them with some water. All right, I have my tubes of water. I have my flowers here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them pretty short, maybe just something about like that, just enough to pop in the tube and not break its little fragile head. So it'll just look like that. And then you can just kind of set it down the table for now and just go ahead and do that to all of them. You should have about 5 stems. So what's good to know at this point is what the top of your wreath is. This is my top, so all of my tubes are going to be nestled with the flower going upwards and the tube going downwards. The reason for that is just so it doesn't leak. These are pretty good, but they're not perfect when they're upside down. It would take a long and slow leak, basically. And if that happens, then your flower doesn't have any water in it to keep it alive. So I'm gonna just, actually, sometimes I just nestle it in, but before I do that, I like to give it a very loose, or not loose, but, tight wrap around the tube. Just a little twist, so it's just kind of like a tube with an attachment. It'll probably come in handy as you are putting it into your piece. But you might find a perfect spot where you don't even need it. The bind wire. Now what's kind of nice to do with some of that moss, which I've already used a bit of it, but I'm going to steal it here, is it's a great way to just kind of cover your tube. I think the last and final step, other than adding a hanger to the back when you're done and you figure out exactly what your top is, I like to add just a little bit of ribbon. Like, that's what it was, like that. That's kind of what I was thinking. Awesome. And I'm kind of seeing it now, and I almost wish I had something right here. So I might rearrange a little something so it fills that spot. But otherwise, I really like it. I hope you really love yours as you're making it. Here's a few close-up shots. You can kind of see how it all is very intricate and alive and fresh and interesting. This is definitely a more joyful, seasonal, special wreath that will not last as long as some of the other wreaths that we offer. Or, you know, they're not just evergreens, they have all these other elements to it. So what I love about this one is it's very limited timing. It's to really mark a special occasion. And if you wanted to make it last a bit longer, you can use the base, but then keep replenishing the most perishable parts of this wreath and get a little more life out of it if you want, or you can just enjoy it for as long as it lasts. So thank you so much for obliging me and making a Warm and Wow wreath.